Alright, so since I was out of town last week, I couldn't make a video on the first episode of the show when it dropped. But now that I'm back in town, I figured, alright, I'll try something new. I'll try making videos on this show 2 episodes at a time. Let's see how that works. So I'm gonna give you a spoiler warning. If you have not watched the first 2 episodes of this show yet, you should probably not watch this video unless you don't care. And that is your warning. Alright, let's dive in. Moon Knight. So Moon Knight is the 6th Disney Plus series in the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Phase 4, and it's already the 10th installment overall in Phase 4. Wow. It's been like a little over a year since Phase 4 started, and we already have 10 titles. That Marvel machine, I'll tell ya. So in Moon Knight, we have a brand new character played by Oscar Isaac, and we first meet him in the first episode titled The Goldfish Problem. He's Stephen Grant. He's a lowly, innocent museum worker in London. And man, how can you not feel sorry for this schlub? Cause really, he's the one who seems to be suffering from all this Moon Knight shit. He is unaware of his other personalities in his head, because that's what he has. Dissociative identity disorder. And so in this first episode, you see him going about his life, no one seems to like him, and then eventually he stumbles across this mystery of the other personality in his head. I mean, the first thing that happens is he wakes up in this other place, and then there's this voice in his head, and I was like, oh shit, there he is, there's Khonshu, the moon god, yeah, that's Khonshu's voice. And he's like, oh great, the idiot's in control. I was like, man, even Khonshu doesn't like Stephen Grant. And Khonshu just looks freaking sick, by the way. I love the CG they use for him. I mean, some of the visual effects in these first 2 episodes, I do feel like they could have been cleaned up a little bit, but not with Khonshu. Khonshu looks horrifying. Come on, this giant staff-wielding mummy-like deity with a bird skull for a head? That would freak me out if it just showed up and jump-scared me out of nowhere. I really like how they're doing Khonshu in this series. I hope he keeps up that terrifying presence of his. One of the most interesting things that happens in the first episode is that every so often, Stephen Grant would just black out. Like, he'd be in the middle of a situation, and then you would see, like, it starts cutting and getting choppy, and all of a sudden he's in a completely different situation. Or some time has gone by, you know, it's like he blacked out. Of course, you imagine, oh, that was his other personality taking over. Which, of course it was. And at the end of the first episode, we see Mark Spector, the other personality, in the mirror. So we get Stephen Grant and Mark Spector talking to each other, kind of like Smeagol talking to Gollum in the reflection in the water. That's the comparison I made anyway. And Mark Spector's like, give me control, otherwise that big jackal creature's gonna kill us. And so that's the end of the first episode, is that clip we saw in the trailer, where we see Moon Knight just beating this thing down Battinson style. And he walks towards the camera and you're like, oh shit. That was awesome. All in all, pretty solid first episode. I mean, it's a lot of setup, cause like I said in my video about the trailer, I imagine this story is going for the slow burn. I mean, it's one story played out over 6 episodes. It's not episodic, it's one big story. So it's gonna feel pretty slow in some parts, but I like it that way. They're taking their time to tell this story. It just turns out that he's already Moon Knight at the beginning of this story, so I imagine later on we will see the origin of how this all happened. The original deal that Mark Spector made with Khonshu. And so going into the second episode, titled Summon the Suit, we're looking for answers now. And little by little, we do start to learn Mark Spector's side of the story. Or at least what he wants Stephen Grant to know. So Mark Spector is an American mercenary, and he tells Stephen Grant, yeah, I serve Khonshu, the moon god. I am his fist of vengeance. We deliver justice. That was good to learn because I don't know why I thought this, but I did think that Moon Knight was actually a separate personality from Mark Spector and everyone else. Like, I thought it was Stephen Grant, Mark Spector, Moon Knight, and then Mr. Knight. I wasn't sure how it worked. This episode teaches us, alright, Stephen Grant is Mr. Knight, which I'll get to in a minute, and Mark Spector is Moon Knight. Alright, I'm glad this episode clarified that up. But honestly, I thought Mark Spector was like the main personality. Like, when he was born, he was Mark Spector. I thought that's how it was. And I'm pretty sure that's how it is, and so maybe we'll learn eventually how Stephen Grant came into being. I'd like to know. We also meet Layla in this second episode. She's one of the main characters here. We learn that she is actually Mark Spector's wife. Yeah, that came as quite a shock to me too. Which, bear with me on this for a second. If Mark Spector is married and Stephen Grant was unaware that he asked out that girl in the first episode, then who did ask that girl out anyway? Is there another personality we don't know about? But anyway, so Layla. She's actually a pretty cool character. She can hold her own. We see her throwing down against goons a little later on. That's badass. But also, she knows about Mark Spector's deal with Khonshu. She knows about Moon Knight. Which, alright, props to Mark Spector for not keeping that hidden from his wife. But also, she is Khonshu's next candidate to be the next Moon Knight. Like, if Mark Spector fails or dies or just gives it up, I guess Khonshu's gonna go after her next. And so Mark Spector's like, oh no, you big bird skull fuckface, you're not doing that to my wife. So I imagine that he will continue to keep being Moon Knight for as long as well, the rest of his life, I imagine, just to keep his wife from becoming Moon Knight. He doesn't want that for her. Makes sense, I guess. I should probably also talk about Arthur Harrow, because he's the villain, and therefore also a pretty important character here. Ethan Hawke is a really good actor, but in the first episode, I thought this villain was so generic. I didn't like his dialogue at all. He's just some god worshipper, he's the leader of a cult, I'm like, okay. So he's a stock villain. He believes that this Egyptian god Ammit will cleanse the world or something. But in the second episode, we actually learned that he was the previous Moon Knight. He was the previous avatar of Khonshu, which, alright, gotta give him props. I did not see that coming. Yeah, that does give him a little bit of depth. I guess he must have had a falling out with Khonshu, and now he's going after Ammit, which this scarab, which is pretty much the map to Skywalker, it's a compass that points to Ammit's tomb. It's a MacGuffin. And so Arthur Harrow's whole thing is that he and Ammit, they're pretty much like Hydra from Captain America the Winter Soldier. They want to wipe out evildoers before they commit their crimes, which, in the words of a great man,
but the punishment usually came after the crime.
And that's pretty much what Stephen Grant says here. He's like, yeah, you wouldn't kill a child for a crime he commits in his 30s. So yeah, this whole cult, they're out of their minds. And so Layla has the scarab. She and Stephen Grant, they're trying to get out of there. This is where we see Layla throwing down with the goons, and she's cool. And she's like, your name is Mark. Summon the suit. And actually, I do like the fact that Stephen Grant just wants nothing to do with this. He is so innocent in all this. So when everyone around him is trying to force Moon Knight out of him, he actually collapses under the pressure. He's like, I'm not doing it. And one part of me was like, oh man, come on. I want to see cool Moon Knight shit. But the other part of me did feel bad for Stephen Grant. I'm like, I get it. You don't want to get your hands dirty. Dude, feel. But eventually the suit does come out. Although not the suit I expected. He jumps out the window, he's like, suit, and then he lands, and he's not in the Moon Knight robes, but he's in like this suit. And I was like, okay, so that's Mr. Knight. I've heard of this Mr. Knight persona before, but again, I wasn't sure what the whole situation was regarding the personalities. So we see Stephen Grant as Mr. Knight, and this is really the first time in the show where we get some comedy. Because Stephen Grant's like, I don't really know what I'm doing, but come here, you jackal thing. I can take you on. I want to know, was anyone else getting a Deadpool vibe from this scene? Because the way it hit the comedic tone and the mask totally looks like Deadpool-ish. I was like, yeah, I feel like Ryan Reynolds would be doing the exact same thing here. It was funny, I'm not gonna lie, I laughed out loud. That was a good scene, and I hope this isn't the last we see of Mr. Knight. But then the Moon Knight does take over. And we get a badass action scene here, dude. I will say this is where the CG could have been cleaned up a little bit. But man, the way Moon Knight is just running across rooftops and the backdrop of the huge moon, I was like, yes, this is awesome. And he kills that jackal thing by just impaling him on that spire. I was like, oh yeah. That was business. And so now Mark Spector is actually in control of the body. To which I'm like, finally, we're gonna get to the meat of the story now. And he's talking with Khonshu and he's like, Arthur Harrow has the scarab. He's gonna get to Ammit, so let's try to get there first.
Where are we going?
And Khonshu's like, where the hell do you think? And next thing you know, we're in Egypt. So alright, that's where this episode ends. We're going after Ammit's tomb, it's a race. We're gonna try to beat Arthur Harrow and his cult to the punch. So yeah, overall, I love these first 2 episodes of Moon Knight. This really does feel like something different, and I know that's something I've been saying about like every title we've gotten from the MCU lately, but what can I say? I love the lack of comedy, I love the psychological horror tone, I love the cinematography. This series is so well shot with the reflections and everything and the cool angles. The theme is really cool, the end credit sequence, awesome. And also the fact that, so far anyway, we haven't gotten any tie-ins or references to anything else in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Zip. Nothing. So like for all we know, this could take place in another universe or a different time. Like maybe this takes place in the 80s or something. I don't know. Actually, wait, there are cell phones. Never mind. But yeah, that is interesting to me. I wonder how long they're gonna keep that up. Digging the vibe so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. So, Moon Knight, the first 2 episodes, The Goldfish Problem, and Summon the Suit. Have you watched them yet? I sure hope you have at this point. What are your thoughts on them? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have yet to get my Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness tickets. Oh boy, wish me luck. Psych, I already got him. Laters, gators.